All right, what is up, everybody? Airy Lord is here, and I am back for another Walking Dead vlog. But I have brought back my, I guess, my only co-op partner that I've been doing Walking Dead vlogs with, at least recently. The Walking Dead World on Twitter. Uh, if you're on Twitter and you like The Walking Dead, you've probably come across his content. He's been retweeted by some Walking Dead alumni. So that is very exciting, and maybe he can talk more about that. But please welcome Jeff, The Walking Dead World. How are you doing this evening?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, man. Yeah, it's crazy that time's going by so fast, and The Walking Dead's kind of it's winding down, but in other parts it's ramping up because we still have the movies on the horizon. We've still got this like Daryl Carroll series. I saw rumors that there might be a Here's Negan series based on like polling they did of how people liked the Here's Negan episode.
Yeah.
Um, so a lot of stuff going on, but I guess what we wanted to do in this vlog was just to review the bonus episodes and kind of just give a discussion and perspective, because I had a few theories I floated in a couple of like the review vlogs that I made where I was like, do you think they were ever going to make these if like the pandemic hadn't happened, or would they have kind of included this in the season 11 content? Because I mean there's some pertinent stuff there, like the Here's Negan thing, and I saw an article where they're like, we should have had this episode years ago.
hmm
Maybe season 8. I think if you agree, season 8 would probably have been the more applicable time to have that Here's Negan episode.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, but yeah. So what are, I guess, just in a general sense, like maybe give me your favorite. I mean, I'm sure I know what the answer is, but give me your favorite of the bonus episodes. Tell me why, and then tell me your least favorite of the bonus episodes, and also give me a reason for that. I guess we could start with that talking point.
Yeah. So definitely, you're right. It's Here's Negan. I think that's everyone's favorite. Even if you don't really like Negan, I feel like that episode was just it was what everyone needed for the character of Negan. It's something that a lot of us have been waiting for a long time. I'm a big Negan fan, so I've been waiting for that episode for a long time. I've always wanted them to get into his backstory and to show that side of the comic story that we've never really gotten. So I'm really like happy that they actually dived into it, and I think this was the best time they could have done it. I do think it would have worked well back in season 8, or during the sort of height of his arc. But I think having this pandemic kind of allowed them the opportunity to dive into that and do a full episode of it outside of the normal season. But just I honestly think that's just that whole episode is perfect. Like the performances, the writing, the directing, the just the whole way it was put together. I love that episode, and it's I wouldn't say it's my favorite episode of like all time, but it's definitely up there. It's one that I feel like I'm gonna watch like over and over again just because of how good it was. Um, if we're talking about least favorite, I actually don't have the same answer that a lot of fans probably have. A lot of fans would probably say the Daryl or the Carol episode diverged. I actually did not hate that episode like a lot of fans did. My least favorite would probably be the princess centric episode, which I know a lot of people really liked. And I did, there were parts of it that I really did like, but overall, I felt like it was the type of episode where the content I feel like would have worked better being mixed in with other stuff. Maybe if we would have been able to see like Eugene's side of things and Ezekiel's side of things while Princess's story was going on. I just feel like there wasn't really that much happening, and we didn't really get much in the way of like the Commonwealth, like information about them. Even though I did like what we got with the character of Princess, I just feel like it was kind of a slower episode, and I'm okay with slower episodes, but that one was almost a little too slow for me. But yeah, But here's Negan, definitely my favorite. I think that's everyone's favorite, but the princess centric one was not my favorite.
Yeah, it's funny. We're on opposite sides of this. And I actually called out, not even knowing, I called out in my vlog. I was like, "You see, I don't understand why people don't like the princess episode." And then not knowing the week later, I was like, that was probably the biggest waste of time episode, the Daryl and Carol, just because I mean, you want to talk about nothing happening. It was like and I don't know if you ever heard my theory of how I could have made the episode better. I did this in my review vlog for this episode, but I said that whole Reaper conflict that Maggie talks about, like the Reapers followed us, like you could have had the same plot with Daryl and Carol being at odds with each other because of that argument they had of the episodes beforehand. You could have had that spaced out over a conflict. Instead, they just had the most boring scenarios, like trying to catch a rat, like Daryl trying to like fix his motorcycle. Like you could have made it more visceral, more just intriguing for the viewer. And I think maybe if Daryl and Carol got like either captured or they see these Reapers and maybe they like try to help Maggie clean them up, and then that can bring her into it because she was only in like 2 episodes. The last one, Here's Negan, she was barely in it.
Yeah.
So I just feel like it was a missed opportunity. Like you could have worked with more of, the fun of your universe rather than doing these very boring, odd, miscellaneous tasks that I'm just like, what am I watching? Like, there was just nothing. Like, I couldn't, because at least the princess episode had a cool, in my opinion, had a cool arc to it, because the fact that she was hallucinating some of that stuff, and then she talks about her backstory of being abused and how she sees some of her friends. Like, maybe it's because we didn't have anything with Princess prior. She'd only been in 2 episodes, and it was just more to further the plot for Eugene to go along and find the Commonwealth. So I was more willing to put up with an episode that explored her backstory rather than the Daryl and Carol thing, which are characters we've had since the very first season of the show. And at this point, I expect characters of that complexity to have a bit more kind of like oomph to them. Like, that they're doing something that merits them being the 2 lead characters. Also, these are the 2 characters you're basing your spin-off show on.
Yeah.
Like, I would have thought that they would have maybe had a more interesting plot, because then that's how you pitch it. And I feel like that's a really interesting thing that happened with these bonus episodes. AMC, I bet you they were like almost testing the waters by having some of these Daryl and Carol exclusive moments to see how people would like a potential spinoff that's kind of already been announced but hasn't been filmed yet. When in reality, the Here's Negan episode was kind of the test that they didn't even realize they were doing. People responded to that. Like, have you seen the YouTube views for some of the Here's Negan videos on AMC? It's like old school numbers. Like, I'm talking like season 6 numbers of hype.
Yeah.
Around it was crazy leading up. I was like, this can't, like, I almost got like a mini flashback to those days of like that constant Sunday hype for the episode. I was like,
yeah.
So then interestingly enough, a few days later, AMC had this like internal poll where they were like, hold on a second, like, and then that's when they explored the possibility of there being a series, because as much as I liked Here's Negan, I thought that every aspect of that episode could have been extrapolated more. Like Lucille finding out about the cancer. Maybe we could have seen some scenes of Negan as a teacher, not just, playing video games and kind of swearing. Because the episode was, it was a shortened, normal length episode, they couldn't spend too much time in each time period, like when Negan encounters Laura, when he gets beat up by the bikers, when it goes to the past. Like, there was a lot of time jumping, and because the episode was constrained, you couldn't give every aspect the time that it needed. Hence, a TV series lends itself to a spin-off lends itself to having that. And I think Jeffrey Dean Morgan retweeted it or something. That's how I saw it, and it looks like he was like happy and on board with that.
Yeah.
So
it's so funny because for years I've been saying I wanted to see Negan's backstory, and I think a lot of fans have always wanted to see that, but this episode kind of proved just how much people want it. And I mean, I I'm obviously gonna watch anything that this universe puts out. The Daryl and Carol spinoff, like I'm not like super hyped about. I'm gonna watch it obviously, and I'm gonna cover it on my Twitter account. But I think they have this magical thing with Jeffrey Dean Morgan as Negan, and they need to capitalize on that as much as they can. And I think like you said, they could expand on everything in the Here's Negan episode and make that a full story. I think it would really work personally as a limited series where they did maybe like 2 seasons, and the first season is, you know, we get to see like his life before the apocalypse as a teacher. We get to see more of his life with Lucille. We get to see, you know, the two of them at the beginning stages of the outbreak, and during those initial couple of months when they were in their basement together, going on like little supply runs, dealing with Lucille's cancer. I think that would be really cool to explore for the first season, and then maybe the second season can be more about Negan after Lucille dies, where we see him actually like putting together the saviors, and we get to see him, you know, forming that with like Laura, and having characters that we know like Simon and like Dwight and the other important saviors coming back into the fold, and seeing how that came to be. Someone pitched a really cool idea of it being up until the moment that he steps out of the RV at the lineup.
I did see that. Yeah, and you can get all of the actors like Gavin, Simon. How about like they never named him. Remember, it's the savior that gets blown up in the motorcycle.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
He's like a mini Negan, because he was very foul mouthed and jokey, and I imagine he probably took after Negan's kind of attitude and was influenced by that. And I would just love to see those early dynamics of the saviors at the height of their power, and following him like we did Rick, like how he just, you know, territorially, you know, captured stuff and just kind of set rules. And I guess that was supposed to be Dwight. It wasn't supposed to be Laura, who was in that scene in the actual bonus episode. But Austin Emilio's obviously filming Fear, so he wasn't able to do that, and I'm sure the COVID restrictions probably made things a little more constrained. But yeah, I agree with you, and I think, you know, he's a very talented actor, and he has shown interest. Not only him, but now his wife, and I'm not sure if you saw, his kid Gus is a zombie extra in one of the season 11 episodes.
Yeah.
Did you see this on Instagram?
Yeah.
I was like, what?
They're filming that right now, apparently. Like right this week, they're filming his scenes for that, which is really cool.
That's just crazy that like almost his entire family is like doing this thing. And, you know, because the other thing is, you know, Jeffrey Dean, you know, has a very close friendship with Norman Reedus, who obviously plays Daryl. And so I just think that he's just kind of gotten, you know, sucked into the fandom. And, you know, he has been on the show for like, you know, like 5-6 years at this point. And so that's why I was really hoping that it wasn't going to be like the comic issue where his character just, remember that issue where he just kind of walks off into the sunset?
Yeah.
And originally he was supposed to die, but then Charlie Adlard convinced Kirkman like that shouldn't happen. And then we had the Negan Lives. I don't know if you bought that comic last summer, the Negan Lives, where I don't want to spoil it for people, but it was a bonus comic book issue to help comic shops during the pandemic, and I got both the regular version and the silver edition just to kind of just to throw support. But there was like a mini story there, and then there's kind of like an adventure that he might go on. I don't know if there's going to be extra issues, but they did kind of like tease that, like, hey, like there's an adventure he's going on, and here's some more content with him, and here's what he's doing on his own.
Yeah, and I feel like there's so much story even with that. Like they could make that its own thing, a Walking Dead movie or a series or whatever, exploring that story and kind of building on it. Because I know it's that's a limited thing, but they could they could do so much more with that in the TV universe that they didn't do in the comics.
You know, it's funny, when I was at Walker Stalker, I guess the last Walker Stalker con that ever happened in 2019, the one in Atlanta 2019, because I mean that was when after that the debacle, all the actors boycotted it, and then COVID happened, and then that was really the end of it.
Yeah.
But when I was there, I asked fan questions to some of the actors, and I asked the actor who played Gavin, and there was one other savior. I forget his name. Oh, it was Jared. Remember the guy with like the long hair that like kills Benjamin?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So those were the two. And I was like, hey, like if they did a Here's Negan movie or some backstory thing about Negan, would you guys want to reprise your roles? And they both said yeah. They're like, yeah, that'd be freaking awesome. Like, because they were like, the Gavin actor was like, yeah, I'd be interested to find out like why Negan regulated him to kingdom. Maybe he needed a more political guy, and the kingdom required that because of the terms they came to, and just, you know, some of that stuff.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's crazy because we got, I mean, from about mid-season 6 to, I guess I'd say it was around the beginning of season 9. That's pretty much how long the main savior arc lasted. We got to meet so many different members of the saviors that were, you know, in leadership positions, and even the ones that were just kind of the grunts of the sanctuary. And there are so many actors they could bring back. I mean, if you think the ones you mentioned, obviously, but the one Paula,
Fat
the one
Joseph.
Fat Joey, Paula, the one that captured Carol and Maggie, they could bring back. And this would make fans go crazy. I know, because he was a running joke for so long, but Morales was part of the saviors.
Oh my God, fucking Morales! Yeah, that would do it.
I mean, imagine if we saw how he joined the saviors. That would be more funny than interesting to me, just because he's such a joke of a character at this point. But I don't know.
That was like a meme The Walking Dead just had to address.
It was literally for years. Anytime there was some tease of someone coming back, it was always Morales. And then he finally came back and died 10 minutes later.
I don't know if you've ever seen there's a video compilation someone made about people asking Trev's Gen 2 about Morales, and he's like, stop asking about Morales. And he's like, they were just trolling him, and he's like, ooh, okay, Rick sees a familiar face. Everyone's saying Morales, and it's just ridiculous at this point, and it's just...
Well, even whenever I would post like a tweet about something like just asking for like predictions about an upcoming episode, even if it had nothing to do with like a mystery or anything, people would speculate, oh, I bet it's Morales. Oh, I bet it's Morales. Kind of like how they do with like Madison now for Fear the Walking Dead. Everyone suspects that there's some mysterious character, might be Madison coming back from the dead, or just it's people don't have people have a hard time when a character isn't shown to be dead or alive, so they always wonder when they'll come back. And Morales is like the perfect case of that.
Fucking Morales. Or how about I actually got a Twitter reply from this guy. The guy Wade, one of the very first saviors we ever see, when Dwight is being hunted by the saviors, and Wade is... We never even... See, that was such... I bet you they were gonna do something with that character, and then the actor either couldn't commit or something.
Yeah.
Because, like, they intentionally didn't show his face. You know, I almost feel like that should have been Simon in that scene. And then you could have had that, like, mini revelation in the finale of, like, oh, there's Simon, and then, oh, but he's actually for Negan. Like, you could have done... I really feel like Wade's character probably should have been Simon.
Yeah.
Just in my opinion.
Yeah, that kind of... I mean, that was still really... I mean, that was the first episode we ever got to see the Saviors. So I feel like they were just trying to figure out, like, what this group was going to be and how they were going to bring them into the show. But I was always mad that they never addressed that. They never showed that character again. That never went anywhere at all. But they have the opportunity now to actually do that, which I think is cool. I don't know if they will, but I feel like that's one of those characters that's kind of just like forgotten in the whole universe. Like, I feel like that's a character they may never address again, because I'm sure a lot of fans have forgotten.
The actor replied to me and said he signed some form, so he can't talk about it. And I'm like,
oh wow.
it doesn't matter at this point because there's the 6-year time jump. The Saviors were defeated. Like you
Yeah.
could have brought him back during the season 8 Savior War if you really wanted to be fodder for the Saviors or something. But my guess, I don't know, if you pin Scott Gimple down, he'd probably be like, in between. Like, I don't know, maybe he was killed off, or maybe he was killed off in the satellite first attack, or something like that. Like there was a significant period of time between when Daryl met Dwight and then when the group really sees the Saviors next. So there is a bit of that, like, time shifting.
Yeah, for sure.
So, but anyway, I guess that shows, like, where the episodes hit and made the most impact. Obviously, the Here's Negan one, it just had such a human tone. Like, it was almost different. It was almost like filmed differently, executed differently from the other ones. Like, they really had this human purpose in following this guy's story. That's why it made me so irate that the other ones were just so, like, whatever. You could have done without them. And not all of them. I'd say the first episode was actually closer to a Walking Dead episode than the others, because, like, Carol gives Maggie an update on the hilltop being burned down, tells her about Negan. Like, there's definitely, like, catching up that everyone does. We get to meet Maggie's kids. So, like, that first episode felt more like a Walking Dead episode than the others. And then you have, like, the bottle episodes with, like, Gabriel and Aaron. What were the other ones? Oh, there was the one where Daryl, like, finds that girl in the cabin.
Yeah. It's weird because I almost would have rather them have just used these 6 episodes to show Negan's story. I feel like that could have been a better use of the episodes, because I feel like these just felt like stories that they never really got to tell, or that they kind of wanted to, but they never really fit into the other episodes. Like, I mean, we really didn't need to see Gabriel and Aaron go off on this supply run. I mean, that's not something we needed to see, but they probably maybe wanted to tell that story at some point, but it just never fit in. So here was the opportunity to do it. And I can appreciate little things in each of the episodes, but there's, like you said, there's such a huge difference between those episodes and then the Here's Negan episode. Like, that one just feels like on a whole other level. But that first episode really does feel like the kind of, it felt like an epilogue of season 10 as a whole, just kind of like recapping what has happened, and in a lot of ways setting the stage for what's to come in season 11. Whereas the other episodes didn't really feel like, it didn't really feel like it was bridging the gap at all. It just kind of felt like we were popping into a day in the life of these characters, and it didn't really have much of an impact.
The first and last episode, ironically, were really the only relevant pieces of information we got about the future of the show. Because the first episode had Maggie's return, her explanation of where she was, getting an update on the communities. Like, that was more story progressive. Yeah. Then you have the big question. I was like, what is Negan going to do? Is he actually going to be involved in the Commonwealth arc? Because he's not involved in that arc in the comics. And then he just, balls of steel, just comes back to Alexandria. And Carol's like, I sent you away because I knew she might kill you. And he's like, yeah, okay, whatever. Like, he's just, I felt like he kind of, like, almost amended, like, himself, internally being on his own, like, coming to that decision. And then he just shows back up, and then it ends. I'm like, I'm glad that, like at least they're smart enough to know that his character is going to need to be pertinent in this final season. Like, I'm not sure how they're going to include him in the Commonwealth stuff, if they're just going to have him stick around in Alexandria and not go, like, because you need that Rick character, because the Commonwealth stuff only really works if you read, if you've seen the comics, because Rick's character is this, like, it's all the politics. Like, he gets so wrapped up in the politics of the Commonwealth. What character's going to do that? Like, Daryl's not a political guy. Mm-hmm. Like, and Carol is more of the, she's not trusting of people. Like, I mean, you could say Eugene, but, like, Eugene's more of, like, the negotiating scientist kind of, like, he's got the thing with Stephanie going on when we meet her character. And so I don't know. I really don't know how they're going to tackle this next season. I mean, that could be that's probably a vlog I'm going to make separately of this, but
That's why
I
I
have
love
no idea.
that's why I love that final scene in Here's Negan, is because that kind of like threw a wrench in what I was thinking was going to happen. I kind of thought that episode was going to end with him kind of going off on his own, and we would pick back up with him in season 11, and we wouldn't necessarily see him in Alexandria. We'd see him elsewhere. But this kind of just like made me realize that he's actually going to be part of the stories that are to come at Alexandria with the other characters, and that's something I'm really glad about, because like you said, we didn't really get to see a lot of that in the comics, and it seems like we're going to get to, and it's so unpredictable right now because they're following the general path of the comics, but there's so many different factors at play right now. So that's what I'm really excited about heading into this final season, is that, I mean, Negan's really, it's such a different character from the comics because he's in such a different situation right now, and that final scene kind of just proved that.
Yeah, it's an interesting interpretation off of what the comic did, because in the show, like, he basically thinks he's strong enough to like go back, but the other thing is that they already adapted that sequence. If you recall, way back in season 9, that moment between Maggie and Negan where she's gonna like kill him, and then she realizes that he's pretty broken and that like keeping him alive is the bigger punishment. But like, I think it was much better, and this is when the show remasters what Kirkman does with the comics far better, because he was able to go through that suffering then, and then kind of evolve into all of the stuff he did, helping the community, saving Judith in the snowstorm, killing Alpha, and helping stop the Whisperer threat. Like, that was all from that moment. Like, he had to break, then he transformed. Ironically, in the cell that Morgan built, that the whole purpose behind it was the rehabilitation, So, that's crazy, that scene. That's almost like 4 seasons worth of foreshadowing. I love that scene when Rick walks in and sees Morgan building the cell, and he's like,
yeah,
Morgan, why? And he's like, it'll give you some choices next time. And I just love that, like, the implication of that is like, keeping your greatest enemy alive, and and then he ends up helping you stop another threat that took out a whole bunch of your people. Like, it's just a cool kind of flow from that whole thing.
That scene always stood out to me, because I always remember when they attack the satellite station for the first time, and Morgan does not want them to do that, and he even stays behind. He doesn't go with them to attack, and they show a little brief clip of him in that cell when he's building, and he's crying because he kind of knows what's happening at the satellite station, and he wants absolutely no part of it. But he does give Rick that option that you can do this a different way, and years later it actually comes into play, which I think is that's smart writing. And I think that was, I don't know if they fully intended all of this to happen years later, but they definitely were setting the stage a long time ago, which is really cool.
My friends and I knew that back in 2016. You could see my reaction video, because I'm like, oh, I know who's going to be in this cell. Like, I mean, I knew from the comics. I was like, yeah, like, it's going to be the guy that hasn't even been introduced at that point yet. Like, I knew that threat was going to be dealt with in that manner. So, but yeah, no, I mean, the ups and downs for the bonus episodes, they were always pitched as just being extras so we could have something to kind of consume until season 11 hit. So I guess it almost isn't like fair to review them in the same vein as a regular episode, but at the same time, I don't know, I still feel like there were some separate decisions they could have made that could have given them a little more impact than they had.
Yeah.
Because we're really only talking about 1, maybe 2 out of 6 episodes, and so yeah.
It's weird because, like, I definitely look at them as just like additional content for fans to kind of hold us over until season 11 gets here. And for that, I'm grateful. It was fun to have something to look forward to every week, and to be able to live tweet new episodes on Sundays and actually like have something to talk about. Whereas, you know, we probably would have had to wait till who knows when for new content. But in that same sense, there were little things that I did like about those other episodes that it's so strange because I obviously could have done without them all, but like I said, the Carol centric episode where she was chasing the rat, I was not looking forward to that at all. I completely understand why people hate it. I think, you know, it didn't need to be made, and it's not one of my favorite episodes, but weirdly enough, I just like seeing like a simple story at Alexandria when there's not really anything going on. I like seeing kind of how mundane the apocalypse can be. And like the Gabriel and Aaron episode, that was such a weird pairing of characters, but I liked seeing it just for the dynamic of it all and getting to see them work together in a way that we really haven't got to see before. So in a way, there's little things that I was able to take from those episodes that I do appreciate that we got them, even though they're not anywhere near my favorites, aside from, you know, Here's Negan.
Right. Yeah, and I guess maybe we'll appreciate those more once A, the show is over, and B, like, they've only got 24 episodes, so they've got to plunge in. It's unfortunate because you only have a limited amount of time to develop Mercer's character, and he's really the only one. There's only like 2 characters that have really been announced for the Commonwealth so far. Like, we don't have Lance. I don't know if they're going to do that stupid kid Sebastian that ends up shooting Rick. Or obviously Pamela Milton, who's the kind of the girl in charge of the whole fucking show. I don't know. Like, from all the preview images, it seems like it's different. Like, it almost looks like it's like a society that's buttoned up, but like there's an underlying thing. Like, I bet you they remastered it because, again, like, it just seems so all over the place. And again, this is with Kirkman's comic stuff, where it just seemed all over the place. And then he's like, oh, I'm going to go in this direction. And, oh, psych, I'm suddenly going to end it. And I'm just like, all right. Well.
Yeah. Yeah, I always thought the Commonwealth was such a weird way to end it because it kind of, they introduced that community in the comics and then it just kind of ends. It doesn't really, I mean, you get to see a little bit of it and you get to see like some major changes, obviously, like with Rick leaving or being killed off, but it kind of just ends after that and it doesn't really, I don't know, I always thought that was a weird choice. So I feel like they could definitely do it better with the show where we kind of get to see all of these characters fit into that community and like rise up, sort of like they did when they got to Alexandria. I always love that part when they get to Alexandria and we see like Rick and Michonne sort of taking over, and we see like Abraham taking over the construction crew, and Maggie sort of takes over on the leadership side of things. So I could definitely see some version of that happening with the Commonwealth story, but done a lot better, if that makes sense.
Without Rick's hardcore like approach to growth, sustainment in the apocalypse and that whole thing, like I just don't know how they're gonna like pull it off efficiently, because the only arc I was thinking was that they could try to merge the whole CRM thing. Like, if the Commonwealth's that big, how do they not know about the CRM that's doing all this shady, you know, experimentation stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, and they have Rick, and that's always how I assumed the show would end. Like, it would sync up with the movie, or maybe the last movie is like the conclusion to the show, and then Rick comes back and he sees everyone, and it's this showdown, whether it's CRM versus Commonwealth, or it's one's the bad guy, one's not. Like, I don't know. Like, I was thinking like that was always where they were headed with like finishing this whole thing off.
Yeah.
And now I don't know. And it's mainly because I don't know when these freaking Rick Ryan movies are going to get filmed. So maybe if there's an indication of that, maybe we'll know. But like, I don't know.
It's so weird because I almost feel like at this point, Gimple and Kirkman and AMC are like trolling us with the Rick movies. It feels like at a certain point the show's going to end and we're going to see Rick and Michonne and in the show, and the movies aren't going to happen, because it already feels like the movies aren't going to happen, but it feels like they're just trolling us to like draw attention away from them returning in the show somehow. And that's honestly what I would prefer, because it doesn't feel like the movies are happening. And I feel like those Rick and Michonne, I feel like we need them for at least the final like couple of episodes. But yeah, I agree with you. That's how I always sort of envisioned things ending, was with this big showdown between the Commonwealth and the CRM, and our group of characters kind of getting caught in the middle of that. And I still feel like maybe elements of that could happen. We might get, I do think we might get more of the CRM towards the end of it. But yeah, I genuinely have no clue. This is one of the first times I've kind of been like stumped with like.
I am so stumped, dude.
With no clue.
I thought maybe if they had another season, maybe they could do CRM for the final season. Like maybe they ally with the Commonwealth and now they've got some firepower behind them, and then maybe like Michonne comes back. Oh, I found Rick's information, but it's not good, and the CRM's doing shit, and I have no idea what direction they're gonna like end with on this.
Yeah, it's weird, because I mean, we've been waiting for the Rick movies for like almost 3 years now at this point, and they've always teased little bits of the CRM. We've gotten a decent amount in Fear the Walking Dead. They've kind of opened up a lot of the CRM world in The Walking Dead World Beyond, but they really haven't shown much of it in the main show since Rick was taken, and no one's really talked about it. So I don't know. I feel like they do need to bring it back in the main show at some point. But I feel like obviously they don't want to show too much, because they don't want us to know where Rick is. But it's weird. It's a weird thing.
I don't get the direction. Like I wish I knew what Gimple's like long-term goal for concluding this fucking thing is. Like, you know, because there's no like Rick's character arc, fate, whatever, is in limbo. Meanwhile, the show keeps moving in like a direction. Like I'm just so confused. Like what is gonna? I don't know. Like it's just such a question mark. Like I'm just wondering what the goal here is. Like I don't know.
It's so strange to me, because I kind of always envisioned like Morgan being brought back into the fold of The Walking Dead, and you know, leading those Fear characters over to the main show, and that it kind of ending sort of like that, where we get to see both of those worlds kind of come together and join forces in some way. But Fear the Walking Dead seems like it's going to keep on going long after the main show ends, so that theory kind of goes out the window too, because I don't envision that happening now, because it really seems like they want to keep that going, and sort of have that become the main.
I'm shocked about that, because after the beer balloon episode, I was ready to fucking jump out a window with that. I watched the mid-season finale of season 5 of Fear, and then I was done. I was just like, I cannot.
Yeah,
I can't continue with this. Like, it's
I saw a tweet that said that the beer balloon is what caused the pandemic, and I mean, it just that was like the lowest point for me. I think for a lot of people too, but I don't know. It's
I'll take a look at it. I've got some time, I guess, until August when the show comes back. So.
Yeah, I've been telling people that have kind of dropped off, because I know I have a lot of good friends on Twitter who keep seeing how people are talking about this current season of Fear, and they kind of want to get back into it, but they've also been burned by it in the past and the dumb mistakes that were made with the show in the past. But I genuinely think that this season is one of the top seasons of the show. I wouldn't say it's the best, but it's definitely. It's been revamped in a way that I would kind of compare to how season 9, how, you know, season 7 and season 8 weren't everyone's favorites. A lot of people kind of rank that as the worst 2 seasons of the show. And then season 9 comes back and kind of wins a lot of people back over. with some of the changes that were made. And I would compare that to how Fear is doing right now. They're kind of doing some things that I wouldn't really expect from the show to keep it interesting. And they've kind of cleared a lot of the mistakes that were made in the past seasons. So I would definitely recommend getting back into it if you have the chance.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like I will, just to kind of prepare myself for, the ending phases of the the main show and stuff. And it's been the main show that I've kind of followed, other than Better Call Saul, and both of them are ending, maybe around the same time. So I'm gonna have to shift to maybe a different show or something, because that's been that's also how I've continued the content on the channel, has just been doing Walking Dead stuff too. So I mean, yeah, a lot of different decisions I'm gonna have to make in terms of all that stuff. So.
Well, it's interesting because I remember when they first announced the final season, everyone was kind of shocked and also kind of saw it coming, but everyone really got kind of sad, I noticed on Twitter. And since they've started promoting the final season, and with them, filming the final season right now, everyone just seems like really sad. And I mean, I am too, that it's ending, because it's obviously been such a huge part of my life for so long. But in a way, I'm so excited to see, like, I'm excited for the fact that it actually will get an ending. It's not just going to be canceled and we don't get any kind of conclusion. It has an end date, and we're slowly building to it, which I think is a good thing. That's a rare thing with TV today. A lot of shows just get ended and they end on a cliffhanger and no one gets any kind of resolution there. But
as long as it ends better than Game of Thrones, it'll still have succeeded.
100%. Otherwise, it'll
listen.
Just be
as that's the thing. As much as some of the seasons were a little tough and people got like a little bored with some of the bottle episodes, and maybe the Savior arc could have been done a little bit better, it is far superior to the nonsensical plot that seized the final couple of episodes of Game of Thrones season 8, which I will not go into now. But rest assured, I hope the main Walking Dead show does not make that mistake with its 11th season. I just really don't want that at all. So
they can't, or otherwise what'll happen to Game of Thrones will happen to them, where it seems like Game of Thrones vanished from the face of the earth after it ended because of how much people hated that ending. No one talks about Game of Thrones anymore. And I feel like The Walking Dead does have staying power, so they have to really stick the landing if they want people to, keep talking about it for years to come.
Yeah. Walking Dead also has a lot of other spin-offs, whereas Game of Thrones doesn't.
Yeah.
I mean, I know they have them in the works, but,
Mm-hmm.
So.
That's true.
But, good, this was all good stuff, good perspective into things. I think, we kind of extrapolated beyond the bonus episodes just into, like, what's coming down the pipeline. It's exciting to think about. The fact that we're getting it in the summer. I've never adjusted to a summer schedule of watching The Walking Dead. That's going to be a big shift. And, and the reaction community is different, right? Like, because, like, if the demand's not there, and I've noticed that, like, and I rounded it out with the finale, like what was supposed to be the finale in episode 16, but, I think it's just a little different now, and who knows what the show would have been if, like, the pandemic hadn't happened, because and I think we say that about a lot of things, not just The Walking Dead, but
totally,
cool stuff. Thanks for joining me on this vlog. Pleasure to get your perspective as always. Get the voice behind the Twitter account. Good
totally.
stuff. And I'll drop your links in the description, but where are the best places that people can find you if they haven't already discovered your content yet?
Yeah, so you can give me a follow on Twitter at TheWalkingDeadWorld. I live tweet every episode, all new episodes on Sundays of all 3 shows. But obviously right now we're in Fear the Walking Dead's 6th season, so I'm live tweeting those on Sundays, and I'll be live tweeting the final season when it comes back in August. But you can follow me there on Twitter, and I'm also on Twitter. My personal account is at JeffreyCop97. I tweet a lot about a lot of other shows and random things, so you can follow me there if you want. But yeah,
Awesome, good stuff, man. Yeah, I guess maybe when the show ends or some other significant milestone, we can do another one of these kind of
yeah,
vlogs or
for
something.
sure.
But yeah, keep in touch. Good stuff. Thank you all for watching and listening to our reactions and opinions. And yeah, I'll see you for content in the future. Peace out.